Good morning, and welcome to this week's message from the Greenville Vineyard. I'm Will, and I will be speaking to y'all this morning about the fourth in our series of Outward. As you know, we've been working through the series of Outward to my fill in the blank. Last week we explored what it means to bring life to our world and to our countries. That was 2 weeks ago. Last week we explored what it looks like to bring life to our cities. And today we're going to tighten that circle down one last time and touch on what it looks like to go outward to my people, outward to our people. You know, each of these circles of the world, of our nations, of our cities, and of all of our people are crucial, but this last one is foundational because from it we can leap out to the wider world of the kingdom, so to speak. And this one's my favorite because in it we get to splash the Holy Spirit all over the place as we move through the people we interact with in our daily lives. Now, when I say our people or my people, I mean the people that you or I interact with on a day-to-day basis, the people that cycle through our lives week in and week out. For many of us, that will be neighbors and co-workers, friends and family. For some, that means teachers and classmates, teammates and coaches. For others, co-workers, supervisors, and employees. You know, our people are the people that we encounter consistently enough for them to get a feel for us and for how we live. You know, once my presence, once your presence, once our presence becomes a fixture in someone's life, even if it's only a tiny one, the presence of God becomes a fixture in their life. So this whole series of Outward is based on the call to make disciples that Jesus gave his followers right before his ascent into heaven. You know, they and we are commissioned to introduce other people to Jesus and his kingdom so that his family will continue to grow. Jesus is life, and his presence brings life to everything it touches. You know, when we carry his presence around with us, we are carrying a vibrant life in a dead world. And when we walk into a room with that life, the world notices, even if we don't notice them noticing. You know, and this really is encouraging for those who get nervous and intimidated by words and concepts like discipleship and commissioned. You know, and instead of going through your day worrying, am I doing enough to make disciples, or am I working hard enough to meet the commission that I'm given, just relax, be yourself, just live life. You know, God made each of us to carry his spirit in a very specific way, and by just living, you know, he'll show us how to do it. It will naturally come out as we just do life day in and day out. You know, all we have to do is just live in and amongst our people. You know, so in the first letter to Peter, from Peter, not to Peter, Peter writes to his audience that they are to always be ready to give a defense when anyone asks them to give an account for the hope that they have. You know, many of you may be familiar with this verse. It's a favorite verse for sermons and is historically interpreted in terms of apologetics. And apologetics is just a technical term for in defense of an idea. So typically this verse is interpreted to mean that we must always be ready to defend Christianity at the drop of a hat whenever someone asks us why we believe it. Now, this isn't a bad interpretation, but it doesn't really grasp the full richness and depth of what Peter is trying to tell his audience, trying to tell us. We aren't supposed to be defensive about our faith. The defense is typically static. You know, it plays it safe. Defense plays not to lose. It's not always risk-taking. You know, Jesus never told his disciples to defend the faith. He told his followers to make war on the forces of darkness, you know, to heal the sick, to raise the dead, to bring life to those who had none. He told them to wash feet, to let the little children come to him, to care for the widows and the orphans. As he said, freely you have received, so freely give. Remembering this shifts the emphasis of Peter's wisdom from giving a defense of faith to giving an account for the hope that we have within us. You know, freely we have received life from Jesus, so freely we must give it out and tell of it. You know, and at its simplest, to give an account is to tell a story. You know, when Jesus was criticizing the Pharisees during his ministry, he did that quite a lot, he told them to let their yes be yes and their no be no, because the contradictions between their words and their actions was making God look really bad. And the easiest way to begin to tell our story is to live it out, to walk the walk as we talk the talk, to let our actions match our words. The people who are seeing our walk and hearing our talk are the people we interact with the most, so they will get to know us relatively well. They will see us at our best, they'll see us at our worst. If at both of those points we continue to carry the love of Jesus within us and let it just kind of permeate out from us, people in our circle who don't know him will notice that. People are used to being let down, not seeing follow through, to seeing inconsistency and hypocrisy. Anything other than that gets their attention. Just being consistently kind to people is an amazing way to bring life, to really just impact the people around you for the kingdom. The world without Jesus is such a cold place that the slightest warmth you can bring to someone's life is remembered. A few months ago, my parents were building a barn for their sheep, and they were under a bit of a time crunch, so they asked some friends to help. Well, word got out amongst their Bible study, Sunday school group, that they needed help, and on the day of the barn raising, they had probably 40 or 50 people out there, and they had people sending large pieces of equipment, people that they didn't even remember. People were like, I remember years ago when I was going through a really tough time, when I was only at that church for 2 years, that these people were so kind to me and really helped me through it. So I'm going to send them my mobile sawmill so they can cut the lumber they need, or I'm going to send the power hammer. And my parents didn't even remember these people, but just the love of the kingdom had just come through them, and it obviously affected these people in some way. You may not even know you're affecting people, but the power of Jesus is always going to touch people far beyond you can comprehend. And be authentic. People know when you're faking it. We live in a very cynical world. So to see you completely transparent in your actions is unusual and intriguing. Something as simple as taking the time to ask someone how they're doing and taking the time to listen goes a long way in showing the love of Jesus. We all know that typically, how are you, is a formula greeting. You say, how are you doing? And the person you speak to is supposed to respond with a one-sentence answer like, I am doing well. Then you don't press in any further, and you both say, good, and you go about your day. However, if you ask, how are you doing, and then you stop, and they realize that you're expecting a full answer, you'd be surprised how many people will talk because someone's actually willing to listen. Because if someone listens, someone cares. If applicable, if the circumstances allow, ask to pray for their situation. If it's something that, they need prayer for, if they're not just telling you how the weekend was. You can pray for them at the moment, or if the circumstances aren't quite to where you can do that, let them know that we pray for them throughout the day, as you go home. If you pray in the moment, remember the Vineyard prayer model. Try to keep it low-key, keep it relaxed. Let them see that expecting Jesus to show up is something that you consider normal and something you expect every day. And if you can't pray for them in that moment, and you let them know, hey, I'll be praying for you this evening. I'll be keeping you in my prayers. Remember that most people will receive, I'll be praying for you, as a polite way to end the conversation with no real follow through. So follow up with them a few days later or a few weeks later, and it'll shock them. Nobody actually follows up unless they care. It may take time, but consistent walking in the love of Jesus would generate conversations. Once you live it out, talk about it. Non-zealous, authentic action based on faith is very strange to people. So when they ask about it, give them a non-zealous, authentic answer. Just tell them your story. Peter said to tell why we had this strange hope inside of us. So tell them why you live like you do, and why it is a result of the hope you carry. The great thing about telling your story is that it's non-threatening. Too often, Christians have used an opportunity to talk about their faith to launch into a Romans Road beatdown of the other person and explain to them why that person is a sinner, why that person needs to do better, and why that person needs Jesus. That rarely works and usually leaves the other person feeling jaded and wary of the next time. Instead, relate the story of how you got to where you are, and do it as calmly, as relaxed as possible. When people ask about your faith, they are taking a risk, and they know it. They're typically ready to throw up their defenses at a moment's notice. I won't profess to be a good one, but I do enjoy deer hunting. And you can really see the animals that have been shot at before when they come out of the woods. Because first they stick their noses out, and they go back in. And then they step out, and they never stop looking around. If you've ever had a conversation with somebody who's asked about your faith, that's exactly how they act. They're always waiting on the blow to come, the shot to come. That they're tense. Being genuine and just being yourself disarms them, allows them to truly listen. They can take down those barriers, take down those walls, and just hear what it is you're saying instead of anticipating the next cutting remark. Own your story. Remember that when telling your story, it's not an opportunity for preaching, it's an opportunity for sharing life. Situations will dictate it, but while you don't have to go into excruciating, intense detail, honor their vulnerability in asking about your story with your own vulnerability and telling it. Tell about how Jesus has gotten you to where you are today, and all the ups and downs that went with it. Your story will be filled with dozens of different points they can relate to, where you've made decisions that have been influenced by your faith that differ greatly from what they have made in similar circumstances. Whoever it is that you were speaking can grasp the similarities and wonder at the differences. Gosh, I know what that's like. Would I have made that decision? It's really strange, but it seems to have worked for them. It gets the wheels turning. It gives them a view into an alternate way of life, that they never knew existed. And this is why owning your story, why us owning our stories is so important. All of our bad decisions, all of our good decisions, where times were tough, where times were good, are all there on the table to be seen and heard. Our transparency allows them to understand that our relationship with Jesus doesn't necessarily lead to a happy-go-lucky, birds singing in the trees, Disney lifestyle, but it does offer up a view of a rich, full life lived with a purpose that drives us every day. So many people long for a reason to wake up each morning that goes beyond making sure the mortgage is paid and the grocery bills are paid. When they hear you talk about the hope that fills your life and how that hope comes from Jesus, and when they see how you have lived your life in a manner that reflects this hope you're talking about, it's a compelling invitation for them to know more. It's a compelling invitation for them to really stop and say, I wonder if there's something to this. The old saying of your life is maybe the only Bible some people ever read is profoundly true. So we have to really work hard to make sure that every page is as little scuffed as possible, and that when it is scuffed, we own it, and that people can recognize that. And if someone's interested in your story, you'll know if they are. Just ask something like, is any of this interesting to you? If they say yes, follow up with, would you like to talk about it? If they say yes, then boom, there you go. You've got a conversation in the books. And if they say no, that's okay too. Our job isn't to wrangle people into knowing Jesus, to try to lasso them in, reel them in close, and then just inundate them with good works or, gospel messages. Our job is just to represent Jesus well enough that people come asking about him. If we faithfully carry him into a room each day, and let him speak through our words and move through our actions, we can be confident that he is working far beyond anything we can imagine. And that, folks, is the challenge for you today. Just stop and reflect. Are you carrying the life of Jesus out to your people? Are you intentional about injecting Jesus into the everyday routine of work, softening it for the people around you? Are you authentic and transparent about how your faith guides how you live each day? Or are you living each day focused on yourself, just trying to survive in order to crawl back into bed and hug your pillow at the end of every day? Are you talking about Jesus, but making the routine of work a grind for the people that you work with? Are you saying that Jesus is your Lord, but living a life that says your own comfort and convenience are? As you consider these questions, I'd like to invite you to share in this prayer with me. Lord, just give me your heart for my people. Show me clearly who they are. Now, as we begin to wrap this up, carry these questions with you into the Father's presence as we invite him here today. I encourage you to get into a receptive posture, whatever that looks like for you, whether it's eyes open or closed, or hands held forth or clasped, or just relaxing on your couch. Enjoy the time to sit and wait and listen to whatever it is the Father may be speaking. Come, Holy Spirit. Father, we ask you just to meet us where we are. If you've been listening to today's lesson and you find yourself wanting to follow Jesus and experience this kingdom for yourself, the way to do that is to give your life to Jesus, to surrender yourself to him. Jesus said, freely you've received, freely give. Jesus gave himself completely for us so that we can give ourselves completely to him. Submit to his will for your life and let him work in you. And this life that we've talked about this morning, this life that goes beyond understanding, will come welling up inside you, and then you'll be able to give it away to others. If this is what you'd like to do, then just pray your best prayer and give your life to him. Just tell Jesus that he can have it all. And if you're not sure what type of prayer to pray, what that might look like, at the end of this message, a slide's going to come up with a little number on it. Just text that number, and we'll send you a sample prayer to guide you through the next steps. And once you've done that, please connect with us, and we can help you take your first steps on that journey. We can help you get started on it. It can be intimidating, but it's also really exciting. And if you aren't local to us, then I encourage you to connect with your local church. Let them know of your decision to start following Jesus. And they'll get you started in the right direction. Now, beyond that, if you sense God speaking to you about your people and how you can reach them, just press into what he's saying. Sit in that place and let him work. As we close, let me pray this over you. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. Thanks for listening today, folks. If you're still in the Lord's presence, if you still feel him where you are, be still in that moment. Don't rush it. Take that time to hear what it is he's saying, and to feel what his presence is impressing on you. If you're preparing to go about your day, make sure you spend some time today praying for your people. Asking the Lord how it is you can reach out to them and what that might look like. So, y'all have a wonderful day and be blessed. Thank you and goodbye.